10x HTML lets you turn this design into a fully responsive, clean, and well-structured HTML CSS code by just clicking this button. But let's dig into it a little more. To run it, click on the Action button in the toolbar at the bottom, search for 10x HTML, and click. After you've run it, select one or more frame to export, and then click on the Generate button. And there you go. A preview window appearing with a web view running on the generated code. This preview looks identical to what you will see later in the browser. From here, I can resize the viewport and see how it behaves at different resolutions. I can hover over each element to inspect them. When I click, it highlights the corresponding line of HTML code. I can also see the generated styles on the bottom right. And on the right sidebar, you'll find a bunch of settings that can be edited on the fly. Now let's click on the row with the two text inputs on top. In the CSS panel at the bottom, we can see that a container query has been added to handle the responsive transition from row to column, and as a result, the page is behaving responsively, turning from flex row to flex column whenever it doesn't have enough space to display properly. You can also notice that this padding shown in green is shrinking when we show our page in mobile view. This is because two media queries have been added to modify the padding based on the screen width. There's another point I'd like to attract your attention on. Look at the text in this page. They're all using a similar Google font family, and in order to avoid defining it for each single text element on the page, the plugin has defined it at the body root level and nowhere else. That helps 10x HTML keep the code readable and minimalist. Also, Arimo is a Google Fonts and is automatically handled by the plugin, so you don't have to worry about that. Now let's see how you can quickly modify the generated code. So if I select this input, for example, on the right sidebar, I can change the text alignment, and you'll see instantly update in the preview. But why are those four inputs synchronized and changing their alignment altogether? That is actually because, even though they haven't been declared as component and instances in the Figma editor, those four inputs have a similar structure, and therefore, 10x HTML recognizes them as instances of the same definition and centralizes the CSS code into a base class input text that defines similar properties like font size, the text align we just changed, and border radius. So, any modification I do on one of these elements will go in that central definition and will impact all the related elements. And you can change many properties, like tag, layout constraints, image format, and many others. For example, the validate button has been detected as a button tag element. But let's say that you prefer a A element. You can just override it by clicking here. Also, by default, the plugin has centered the button at the bottom horizontally, but you can easily override that behavior and center it left, or right, or even stretch it. And you can also align its children with the children align setting, and the CSS code will get updated instantly. Now let's close this screen and try it on this account creation simple page. Let's zoom in a bit. As you can see, it's also behaving responsively. Flex row container are turned to column whenever necessary, and padding and margins are also adapting thanks to media queries that were added to the CSS. Let's take a look at those three social login buttons. Like before, they have been centralized to a unique base class. However, the plugin didn't manage to recognize that it should be a button or an A and has declared it as a div instead. We're going to fix that by going to the right sidebar and chose the button tag. And now our three div item are turned to a button element. The name of the base class is now btn item. That could be improved. Let's give it a more appropriate class name like button SSO. And now you can see our three buttons class name have changed to button SSO. Of course, you could make those change within your IDE directly, but as you can see, doing them in the preview is faster and less error-prone. Let's take a closer look at that Google button on the left. Inside, we can see two children, a P tag and an IMG tag. The IMG tag is for the icon, which is defined as a PNG. But let's say I'm not happy with a PNG and an IMG tag, and I want an SVG instead. I can change the IMG tag to an SVG tag in the right sidebar. And here we go. My three buttons icons are now defined as SVG. Let's look at one last important point, the general layout. By default, the plugin has set width equal to 100% and a max width to this container. But in some case, you might want a different behavior, like having it stretch across the page, Let's click on that container and set its container alignment to stretch. And here we go. The max width has disappeared, and our Flex parent container is now defining a stretch align items property. On the top right corner, you'll find various global settings to fine-tune how you'd like the code to be rendered, like SCSS, what kind of unit, format of image, responsive options. For example, let's change the unit from pixel to rem, and save, and we can see that the code updates instantly, and all units in both pages have been changed from pixel to rem. So that's an example of how you can quickly shape up the exported code before you download it and open it in your IDE. One more important point to clarify, those modifications are persisted. You can turn off the plugin or even Figma, and they will still be there next time you export those same pages. You're not going to lose any of those changes. So let's move on and download the code. You can export your page one by one, but 10x HTML also lets you export multiple pages at once, which is what we recommend doing since it will allow for more centralization of your images and CSS definitions. Click Generate Code again. There's a toggle on the top left that lets you switch which page you want to preview, and we're going to click on the Download Code button at the bottom right. This will let you save a zip file on your computer. So let's unzip it and open it in VS Code. And there is our project folder, with one HTML file for the first yellow modal page and one HTML file for the account creation page, with the header, our 3-button SSO here, the login form, and the footer. In the CSS folder, we have one file for the yellow modal page, one file for the account creation page, with a few container queries at the bottom, some breakpoint for the paddings and margins. And we have a global CSS files for shared elements between the two pages, like common body definitions, common HTML definitions, and some variables. And we have an asset folder for images with one folder for each page. Now let's execute those pages in the browser to confirm that the result is indeed the same as what we've seen before. Let's quickly check the responsive behavior. As you can see, our Validate button at the bottom persisted the change we made, even if that change is rather questionable. Our inputs are actual inputs. Now let's see the account creation page. We have some hover definitions automatically added to buttons. The responsive is still fine. And if we inspect our button, we can see the renaming into button SSO we did before has been maintained. So thanks for holding until there. I hope this made you interested in trying the tool out. If you do, please reach out and share some feedback, as it is still work in progress and we really want to try to push it as far as we can. On that note, some options like Tailwind or JS Frameworks export are on the roadmap and definitely coming soon. I hope 10x HTML can help you speed up your integration process. See you soon.